Hello champions and happy Tuesday. Today we're going to multiply decimals by whole numbers. By the end of this video, you'll be able to multiply any decimal by any whole number and explain why it works. Mr. Smiles knows you're going to do a great job. Let's jump right into the video. Let's start with our do now. Ariel buys 6 baskets of candy from the store. She gives each of 8 friends the same amount of candy. How many baskets of candy did she give to each friend? Well, what operation can I use to solve this problem? I can use division to solve this problem. Ariel is splitting something up. What is Ariel splitting up in this problem? Ariel is splitting the 6 baskets of candy. So, what division problem would I use to solve this problem? I would divide 6 baskets of candy between 8 friends. 6 divided by 8. What fraction results from 6 divided by 8? 6/8. That's not my answer. I can simplify. What's a number that goes into both 6 and 8? 2 goes into both. When I write 6/8 in simplest form, what is my result? It's 3/4. So the answer to this question is 3/4. Each friend gets 3/4 baskets of candy. Use the model to multiply 1/4 times 5. So go ahead and fill in 1/4 on each one of these 5 holes. This model shows 1/4 5 times. Now solve the problem. When I multiply 1/4 times 5, what improper fraction results? 5/4. 1 times 5 is 5, and my denominator stays the same. Now, when I change 5/4 into a mixed number, what mixed number do I get? Well, 4 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. When I subtract, I have 1 left over. So the answer is 1 and 1/4. Which statement is not true? D is not true. 3 divided by 4 would be 3/4, or 4 divided by 3 would be 4/3. Now try another. It's been a little while since we've multiplied, but I know you're going to do a great job. What's 413 times 24? 413 times 24 is 9,912. Check your work with mine. Let's look at the next problem. Mr. Jones bought 16 cans of paint for a project. 3/4 of the cans contained green paint. The rest of the cans contained blue paint. First, how can we solve this problem? What operation would we need to use? We need to use multiplication. When we find a fraction of a number, we multiply that fraction by that number. 3/4 times 16. When I multiply 3/4 times 16, what improper fraction do I get? Remember, I can multiply out to the side if I need to. When I multiply 3/4 times 16, 16 times 3 is 48. I get 48 over 4. Now, I need to change that into a whole number or a mixed number. What's 48 divided by 4? Well, when I divide 48 divided by 4, 4 goes into 4 one time, that's 4. Subtract and I have 0 left over. Bring down my 8. 4 goes into 8 two times. 2 times 4 is 8. So I have no remainder. The answer is Mr. Jones bought 12 cans of green paint. Now, how many blue paint cans did Mr. Jones buy? If I know that there are 16 cans total and 12 are green, how could I find the number of blue? What operation would I use? I would use subtraction. 16 minus 12. So, how many blue cans did Mr. Jones buy? 16 minus 12 is 4. He bought 4 cans of blue paint. Let's do another. Haley read for 2/3 of an hour on Tuesday. On Wednesday, she read for 1/3 as long as she read on Tuesday. How long did Haley read on Wednesday? What operation would I use to solve this problem? Again, I'm finding a fraction of a number, so I would multiply 2/3 times 1/3. What's 2/3 times 1/3? It's 2/9. Haley read for 2/9 of an hour on Wednesday. Now let's jump right into our new content. Today we're going to talk about how to multiply decimals. We're going to use our knowledge of multiplying fractions to help us. Look at the very first problem. 1/10 times 5. How do I write 0 and 1/10 as a fraction? I write it as 1 over 10. And I'm going to multiply that times 5. So on my model, I would shade in 5 of the tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I multiplied the fraction 1/10 times 5, what would my result be? My result would be 5/10. So when I multiply the decimal 1/10 times 5, I know that 5 times 1 is 5, and my result is going to be in the tenths place. So I need one number behind the decimal. I get 0.5, or 5/10. What if that 1 was in the hundredths place instead? How do I write this decimal as a fraction? I would write it as 1 over 100. And I'm multiplying it times 5. If I multiplied the fraction 1 over 100 times 5, what would my result be? My result would be 5/100. I can show that on the model by shading in 5/100. So, let's talk about how we would write that as a decimal. I would multiply 5 times 1, and I would get 5. I know that my answer needs to be in the hundredths place, so I need to put 2 digits behind the decimal, 0.05. Let's do another. 0.2 times 6. How do I write that decimal as a fraction? It's 2/10. So I'm multiplying 2/10 times 6. When I multiply 2/10 times 6, what's the result? The result is 12/10. I can show that on my model by filling in 2/10 6 times, or 12/10. Now, let's show how we would do that with our decimal multiplication. 2/10 times 6. 6 times 2 is 12, and I know that I need an answer in the tenths place. So how many digits need to be behind the decimal? 1. The answer is 1 and 2/10. Let's do another example. 2/100 times 6. How do I write 2/100 as a fraction? It's 2 over 100. When I multiply 2 over 100 times 6, what's the result? It's 12 over 100. Now let's show that with decimal multiplication. First, I can multiply like normal. 6 times 2 is 12. I know that my answer is going to be in the hundredths, so I need how many digits behind the decimal? I need 2 digits behind the decimal. So my answer is 0 and 12/100. Let's try a couple examples. 65 times 2/10. I know here that my denominator is going to be 10, so I'm going to need 1 digit behind the decimal. Now I can just multiply like normal. What's 65 times 2. Well, 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 more is 13. 65 times 2 is 130. How many digits need to be behind the decimal? 1, because my answer needs to be in the tenths place. My answer is 13.0. Let's look at another example. 13 and 7/10 times 12. Again, this has a decimal that's in the tenths place, so my answer is going to need a decimal in the tenths place. Now I can multiply 13.7 times 12. First, with no decimal, what's 137 times 12? 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 2 times 1 is 2. Drop my 0. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. Now I can add. 4 plus 0 is 4. 7 plus 7 is 14. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 3 is 6. And 1, the correct answer with no decimal is 1,644. Where do I place the decimal in that number? My answer needs to have a decimal in the tenths place, so I need one digit behind the decimal. 164.4 is correct. Let's try another. A bag of hot fries costs $2.07 at the store. Mr. Gibson buys 4 bags of hot fries each week for the auction. How much does Mr. Gibson spend on 4 bags of hot fries each week? I need to multiply because I need to repeatedly add $2.07 4 times. Go ahead and multiply 4 times $2.07. Enter your answer in the box. Let's see how you did. 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 0 is 0 plus 2 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. There are 2 digits behind the decimal. I need an answer in the hundredths place. So, Mr. Gibson spends $8.28. Let's look at another example. A marathon is 26.2 miles long, 26 2/10. Jeremy set a goal of running 4 marathons this year. How many miles will Jeremy run? First, where is my decimal point going to go in my answer? How many digits will be behind the decimal? 1 digit will be behind the decimal because my answer will be in the tenths place. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 more is 10. I need to place 1 digit behind the decimal. The answer is 104 8/10. Now you try the last two. Laser tag costs $11.45 per game. If Joel plays 8 times, how much will he spend? Joel will spend $91.60. Let's look at another one. Peter earns $14.50 per day selling lemonade. He worked for 6 days last week. How much did Peter earn? Peter earned $87.00, which is the same as just $87. You've done a great job on this video. Keep working on practice until you get further directions.